Today we're speaking with Eric Todd Rocks Carr, and of course, Eric, you're what I consider the ultimate Kiss fan, and you kind of make a living, getting dressed up and making public appearances as Eric Carr. So I'd like to start this interview off. If you could share with us how you first got into Kiss, and Eric in particular.
Well, it was back in the high school years, which we won't disclose how many years ago that actually was. But back in the high school days, everybody's learning about music and finding their own, be it country music, rock music, whatever. And of course, that was the day of MTV, which most of the young generation won't know what that is, except for TV shows. This is when they actually played music videos.
Yeah,
and
you remember?
Of course, I saw this band on there with this larger-than-life persona, and it was Kiss. And the video actually was Rock and Roll All Night, Party Every Day. And in that video, you just get, Kiss up to the probably mid-80s point of, the classic Kiss with the makeup. And at that time, the current lineup, which would have been Paula Jean, Bruce Kulick, and, of course, Eric Carr, non-makeup. And, once you watch that video and you hear that tune, it's just like, how can you not be hooked? You know what I mean? So, that's pretty much where it started.
Okay, now I understand you're a musician yourself and a drummer, so is that kind of what made you gravitate towards Eric Carr as him being your favorite member?
Well, I tell you, it was very cool because at that point in time, of course, I was in high school, and I was in band at the time. Drums was always a thing that really interested me because it was loud, obnoxious, and that was sort of the generation back then, being loud and obnoxious. But seeing Kiss, it was really both, I have to say, Eric Carr and Peter Criss that got me really turned on. Listening to the classic tunes of Kiss, you hear that big band swing type drumming that Peter Criss did that, I thought had a really solid foundation for the band. And then hearing what Eric Carr brought to the band and a lot of the 80s style drumming that he did with the band, it was just like, wow, it's night and day. Peter's a good drummer, and I know Peter on somewhat personal level, and Eric Carr he brought this really loud, hard drumming, obnoxious type, aggression into the band, and it's like, yep, it's time to go out and find me a big double bass Ludwig drum kit and start beating them down and be like Eric Carr. So, Eric Carr did have a really, really big impact, but I'd have to say it was both Eric and Peter.
And so, let me ask you, did you ever, before you started, paying tribute to Eric, did you ever have any kind of original band where you did your own original music?
Actually, yeah, back in, I'd say probably the early 90s, probably around 94, 95. I'd like to give you a better time frame, but they were hazy times back then.
I got you.
But, I did have a original band out of Altoona, Pennsylvania. It was actually called Toddo, Toddo, and it was all original music, pretty much based off the hair band format. And we did put a CD out back in the day, which did pretty well locally, probably with the western side of Pennsylvania. Our biggest thing to date would have been playing the legendary CBGBs in New York, big stage of the Ramones, Blondie, just a bunch of different genre bands played there. And that was pretty much a highlight of my career. And after that band dismembered, so to say, I had a couple other different original projects and even a couple cover bands. And it just never really felt complete, or I was being fulfilled musically, even though I was doing my own thing and drumming my own drum style and everything. There was just something missing,
Yeah.
And that's pretty much where the me being in a band scenario started. Yeah.
And let me ask you, what was the point where you decided that you want to start doing these personal appearances and start dressing up like Eric Carr? And are you surprised at how the success you've had with that?
Totally blown away, actually, with how popular it's actually turned into. As we all know, as Kiss fans, some die hard, just some on the wagon. There's a lot of emphasis around the 4 original makeup designs, and even the 4 original members.
Yeah.
And that's nothing to be argued or even played with. It's very understandable. But we all know there's been other formats. There's been other members. Just a whole other genre that's carried Kiss through the 80s, the 90s, and to what they are today. And those would have been Eric Carr, first and foremost. I don't believe, really, if Eric did not join the band, there's a big question mark, would Kiss really be here today? Or would they even have the success that they did with Eric, sort of rejuvenating them, taking them to the next level, making them a harder rock-type driving band. So we got to give Eric credit. Vinnie Vincent, Mark St. John, Bruce, Eric Singer, and now Tommy, all very key and important people to keeping Kiss going, and Gene and Paul too. They both could have cashed it in at any time and said, no, we're going through too many people. We're doing this. We had to take the makeup off. Yada yada.
Yeah.
Let's just do away with Kiss and forget it. No, they both have a business savvy about them. They said the band's too important to let two founding members bring it down. The death of someone very important, like a brother to Gene and Paul. We can't let that stop the band. And of course, all the the rotating guitar players. So it's definitely a cool thing to see that it's still going after 40 years. And the success it's brought to me, I got tired of doing the original and the cover band, thing back in the day. And I was like, a good buddy of mine, Joey, who used to play drums in Kiss Nation, who did Eric Carr, he was just starting a band called ZO2.
Okay.
Which,
yeah.
He's really getting into. And I was like, you know what? There's not going to be an Eric Carr out there, in the tribute world that I knew of.
Yeah.
And I was like, if he's cashing in him, I'm going to pick up where he left off. So I was actually in Louisiana at the time, and I met a couple people down there who were in the same boat as me. They did a couple Kiss tribute things down there. We joined forces. We started a band called Kiss Allies, and we had a short run down there, and then I found myself moving back to Pennsylvania, and was in the midst of reforming, and there was a Kiss Expo in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. And we might be getting a little ahead of ourselves here, but we went to that, and pretty much that's where the Eric Carr tribute really took off and started for me.
Wow. And are you surprised? Because, of all the Kiss replacement members, I think Eric Carr is still, the most popular. I was curious, when you first started doing this, Were you surprised to see how many Eric Carr fans are, still around today, almost, 20 years after his passing?
I can honestly say I'm never totally surprised. I mean, I'm always surprised. Even when I showed up at that expo, which was probably 2008, 2009, whenever it was, I walked down the hallway to get in line to go in, which, we all do. And everybody was, there was flash bulbs going off everywhere, and everybody was just blown away that Eric Carr, so to say, was there. And I spent the day, taking pictures, talking to fans, even the vendors, Kiss Online, Kiss Asylum, I think Kiss Army Warehouse was there too. These popular vendors, and they come up and they thought it was just great, and they were blown away, and they were happy to see somebody keeping the memory alive, and I take great pride in that. I really do.
And of course, another thing that you do these days is you're kind of the official spokesperson for EricCarr.com, which of course is an official Eric Carr website, and I know you've gotten quite close with the family. You want to talk about how you hooked up with the family and started working with them?
Well, it's a funny scenario because at the same expo where I said this pretty much took off, EricCarr.com was there that day, and the guy that was running the table at the time seen me walking around, and he called me over. He was showing me some of the merchandise that they had happening at the time, and he goes, "Dude, how are you not working with us? How are you not being like the face of Eric Carr right now?" I was like, "I don't know." I said, I was just blown away that he, gave me the compliment. He's like, "Well, I definitely think it's awesome. Can I take a couple pictures?" And I'm like, "Yeah, and I took a picture with him, and at the time, they had the Eric Carr Unmasked bobblehead out, and he's like, "It'd be really cool for you to take a picture with that, and I'll send it to Loretta, and, just, for a laugh." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, whatever, I'm not thinking anything of this." And lo and behold, I think it was a couple weeks after, maybe a couple months, I get a personal email saying, "I need to talk to you. There's some projects I think you would do very well helping us promote." Lo and behold, it's Loretta Caravello, and I'm like, "Oh my God," it's like the last thing I expect. And we talked via email, and then we talked on the phone. And the first project that I did, promotional-wise for them, was the launch of the Rockhead comic book that came out a couple years back. And we did a couple, I think we did 2 commercials, or 2 video-type commercials with the help of Matt Porter, a good friend of mine. He did the video work for it, and we promoted that, and ever since it's been like Loretta has her brother back, because our relationship has grown pretty much to where she'll beat me up and down and tell me, do it this way or do it that way, or what do you think we should do? Give me some thoughts on what the fans would like to see merchandise wise, or just stuff like that. And we've grown really close to where it's pretty much if we're not beating each other's email up on a regular basis, there's something wrong, So that's pretty much how it all got started and has grown to this point.
And let me ask you, you mentioned the Rockhead, which of course was a cartoon project Eric created, and did the music, of course, with Bruce Kulick for. I was curious, besides the comic book, do they have plans to do more with that?
There is some stuff in the works. She's really, the one thing I gotta say about Loretta, she's just so business savvy. She has a ton of cool stuff either coming out now as we speak or coming out relatively soon. I wish I could just spill it all to you, but she would rip my heart out of my chest. But you know, she has. I'll put it to you this way: the Rockheads are not dead. The comic book was just a start.
Okay.
She's actually trying to decide which way she wants to take it now that she fully owns it, and I'd say probably within the next year, be looking for something new. Yeah. That's
cool, and so she completely owns that now. So Bruce Kulick has nothing more to do with that. He's totally signed it over to her.
That's logistics between them guys.
I got you.
I really don't know. As far as what I do know, it's pretty much her baby now to do with what she wants. I know that her and Bruce still talk greatly on different projects. I mean, he actually helped out with the Eric Carr Unfinished Business CD. You know, he still probably gives his insight on this, that, and the other stuff to maybe come out with, you know, merchandise-wise and stuff like that. They still, you know, are really close as much as
can be
her and anybody else in the business, you know.
Wow, and speaking of unfinished business, you know, that was a interesting project because a lot of them were unfinished demos that other people, I guess, came together to make the album happen. What do you remember about that album, or you know, being involved with the promotion?
Pretty much the CD was her idea, and of course everybody that appears on it was, you know, a friend of some sort to Eric Carr. I mean, you had AJ from Twisted Sister, and I mean, I wish I had the whole list here.
Yeah.
People. But it was really cool to see them put their spin on Eric Carr's tunes, you know. And there's actually a couple songs that really are personal favorites to me. I really love the Shandy tune that they sort of did with a different vibe, but that's actually Eric Carr's voice from his audition with Kiss, and where he's actually singing along to Paul Stanley's vocal track to the original tune Shandy. And Elephant Man, that was just that was a Kiss tune actually waiting to happen.
Yeah.
It just never got to that point. And you know, it was actually cool to have Eric's other sister and his niece do the backing vocals on that tune, which I don't know if a lot of people know that or not, but that's actually Sissy and his niece doing the backup vocals on that. And if you listen to Car Jam, and you remember back a little bit earlier, I was mentioning about this cat named Joey, who was the Eric Carr in Kiss Nation way back in the day. That's Joey doing Car Jam, and I mean, he just blows it out of the water. I mean, close your eyes, you would think it was Eric Carr himself.
Yeah.
And of course, his band ZO2 does All Hell's Breaking Loose. So, you know, it was a great CD. I do know that there's some other stuff lying around that maybe could, you know, transpire into something like that again. You know, we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, in regards to the unreleased stuff, I heard that the original demo was found of Shandy, that, like you said, it was for his Kiss audition tape, and I heard that he did a cover of a Van Halen song as well on that.
I know that she has some other stuff like that from that time frame, from the audition phase. I think another thing that she made mention to, or I seen somewhere, was he did some drum. He drummed along with some Van Halen tunes.
Okay,
and,
that might be.
You know, I mean, there's some points where you listen and is that Alex or no? Maybe that's Eric. No, you know, you're playing that mind game with because both phenomenal drummers, and you know, it was sort of cool just to hear both of them drumming to the same tune, and trying to pick out who's who, you know.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff like that still laying around. I got to give a shout out to Beth Jordan, who helped produce the Unfinished Business CD with Loretta. So Beth, there you go, a little shout out for you.
Yeah, of course, she also,
you know, super cool girl, and yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I know she has an internet show called Amplified, I think it is. Yeah, she's totally one of the people that, you know, in the KISS world that's really behind the Eric Carr thing. So that's great. You gave her a shout out. So I also want to go back to, you know, when you first learned, going back to 1991 when, you know, November when Eric finally passed. Do you remember where you were or how you first learned the news? You know.
Yeah, I absolutely do, because it's going to get a little weird here, but I was actually just out of high school. I graduated in '91, and you're sort of in that, you know, thank God I'm out of school phase. And I'm sitting on my couch, you know, watching MTV again, and it's one day after my birthday. My birthday is on the 23rd of November. It's November 24th.
Wow.
I've been there, you know, just another day, you know, and I remember Martha Quinn comes on, or no, not Martha Quinn, it was, I can't remember her name right now, but
yeah.
She comes on, and the MTV News comes on, you know, and they said about Freddie Mercury. I'm like, wow, you know, never a big Queen fan, but, you know, that was sad. And then she goes, you know, KISS drummer Eric Carr passed away, and it's like, you know, I get a little choked up right now, but it's like my heart stopped. You know, my idol is passed away, and you know, it was sort of surreal because I couldn't, you know, you don't think things like that can really happen to people that you either look up to or you're close to or whatever. And I mean, at that point in time, you know, I fully discovered the whole Unmasked part of KISS, you know, the Hot in the Shade, Crazy Nights, Animalized, Asylum. I think even at that point I discovered The Elder, and I knew about Creatures and Lick It Up, of course. But, yeah, you know, to be sitting there and hearing that live, you know, I mean, for the very first time, it was very, you know, it was heartbreaking because, you know, I didn't fully know Eric and his character and persona and lifestyle at the time, but you could tell he was really a genuine guy who really was very personal, cared about the fans, cared about KISS, you know, deeply, greatly, and so yeah, that's where I was at 91. One day after my birthday, November 24th, 1991.
And let me ask you, being somebody that, you know, has never met Eric, but doing what you do, do you feel in the time you got to know the family and his sister, you've kind of come a little closer to him, if you know what I mean, or you kind of get to know the man he was?
Well, the good thing about the internet, which is, you know, the later invention. I mean, of course, the internet wasn't really around back in them days.
Yeah.
But watching all the videos that either was documented by the band or, you know, was shot by the fans, and, yeah, even, you know, getting tied in with the family, I really learned who Eric Carr was. And it was more than a KISS drummer. And it was more than a Fox. Eric was, you know, before KISS was a struggling musician like I was, you know, and he was a stove repairman with his father. He was never afraid of hard work, you know, heights, anything, you know, he was always, you know, he was right there. He was in the hard things, you know, very strong, very brave guy. And give you the shirt off his back, or he would be the one that you could turn to and talk to when maybe life is beating you down or something like that. And, you know, hanging out with Loretta and, you know, being able to go over to her house and sit and talk and, she has shared so many personal stories that, you know, I wouldn't disrespect her by going and repeating, but from those stories you can tell who Eric Carr was. And he was, I mean, it's, you can't put into words really how genuine of a person he was, but I can distinctly say that he cared about every one of the fans that he met and he didn't get a chance to meet. And if he was here today, he would probably be going out of his way to meet every one of them, because that's who Eric Carr was.
Yeah, you know, talking a little bit about Loretta, you know, I've dealt with her, you know, through email and stuff, and she's always been very cool to me, and I just thought it was very cool, like going back to the Unfinished Business CD and the liner notes. She even thanked Gina and Paul, you know, for making her brother's dream come true. I thought, you know, that was a totally cool thing to do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I'm talking about, you know, what a hard worker and how dedicated Eric Carr was. I mean, we might not have known at the time, but if you go back to even the God Gave Rock and Roll to You video, which was the last thing he did, I mean, you can tell now if you look at him performing in the video, and Gina and Paul both got on record saying, you know, he was really deathly ill at that point, but, you know, he wanted so bad to be a part of that. It was the last thing he did, and, you know, he probably felt like shit, but he played his, you know, ass off, and, you know, and you could tell, you know, if you look back and, you know, those video clips now of him doing it, you know, he doesn't, you know, he looks kind of sick, but that's the kind of guy I guess he apparently was.
Well, the funny part about that whole video, and of course, there's a video out on YouTube of one of the recent extras, and I think it might have been Indy, where Gene actually talks about that video. And of course, you know, it's nothing against Gene. You know, it's a one, or his side of the story, and which is pretty much accurate. And lucky me, I get to hear the other side of the story and what Eric was going through at the time of that whole scenario. And you know, I think at that point he was pretty much out of the band at that point. And of course, we know that Eric Singer actually
played on the track,
the drum recording of God Gave Rock and Roll to You. And but if you look in that video, and of course it's slightly edited, Eric Carr is playing verbatim to that tune. And of course he was, I don't think too many people realize or know that he was actually practicing that tune, because he did put in a lot of time on some tracks getting ready for Revenge. If he would have had his way, he would have recorded that Revenge. And I can't really place which tunes he did the drum tracks for before Eric Singer came in and did the final recordings, you know. But there was a lot of stuff that went into Revenge in that video. And a cool thing that not too many fans might know is the actual drum kit to be used on what would have been the Revenge tour is still owned by the family.
Wow.
And there's a couple pieces from that drum kit sitting in my basement right now for my drum kit.
Wow.
So there was some big preps being made for you know, another tour with Kiss, but you know, God had his other plans, and you know, so be it. That's the way life goes.
Yeah, you know, I think the sad thing about, you know, his whole passing is a lot of people, for, you know, they don't know the whole story, kind of trash Gene and Paul. But one thing I will say about the guys, you know, even in listening to them in interviews, every time I gotta say they talk about Eric Carr, you can tell that they were even kind of affected by his death. I mean, not only was it their friend and their band they played with for years, but, you know, Gene even in a recent interview, I seen him saying, you know, I'm a major asshole. I talk shit about a lot of people. Eric Carr never, you know, said a bad word about anybody. And look at how he suffered. And I think maybe, you know, a lot of fans maybe think it was cold-hearted while Eric was sick for him to continue on making the album. But even I've heard Bruce Kulick say in interviews, well, you know, that was how we were trying to get through, you know, that was our way of dealing with it. So, I think people, need to understand that.
Yeah, if you look at some interviews, with Gene, not so much Paul. I mean, I've really never seen Paul talk too much about Eric Carr, except for maybe the Kissology DVDs.
Yeah.
But if you look at Gene and you look at Bruce, you can see a little sadness in the eye every time they talk to him. And I know that Gene was very close to Eric Carr. If you could look at some videos that popped in my mind right now, if you YouTube Hide in the Shade rehearsals, and you watch some of the backstage stuff or before they were actually rehearsing, and you see how Gene and Eric Carr sort of just joked around in the joking atmosphere, you could tell, they were really close, and even with Paul, and I know Bruce was extremely close with him just because of the whole scenario. They were replacements in Kiss, and they really didn't get the glitz and glam that Gene and Paul did. So they hung out a lot, and they got very close. And so yeah, there's to this day you can see a little bit of sadness when they talk about him. But Eric wouldn't want us to be sad. He would want us remembering the awesome stuff he brought to Kiss, all his music, the Rockheads, and that's how I try to remember Eric Carr on a daily basis. Just the happy stuff, and we sort of put the passing away, and he's always with me. So that's the biggest and coolest thing. I
think that's a really great thing, and talking a little bit about Eric Carr, on a happier note, the song Little Caesar, that was his big lead vocal he did with the band, as far as an original song. But there's actually, as most Kiss fans know now, 3 different original, versions of that. I mean, obviously there's Little Caesar, and then there was a song I think called, I Ain't Messing With You, and there's another version I think on the Kiss box set. It's kind of interesting to see, how that song started out and, what it became.
Yeah, very cool. If you go to the Unfinished Business CD again, there's a slightly different version of it on there,
yeah,
with some different lyrics and a little different vocal pattern that Eric sings there. And yeah, it's very cool to see how that song has gone from A to B, and I wish they would have done it live, but Eric shined on a lot of different Kiss tunes. Young and Wasted, he always, he annihilated that song, and of course,
Black Diamond,
everybody's favorite, Black Diamond. I mean, you can't. I mean, Eric Carr singing that vocal. I mean, it's just awesome,
Yeah.
So Eric was very strong, and just awesome.
And let me ask you yourself, going back to the 1988 Smashes, Thrash and Hit, what did you think about Eric's version, Beth? Because I understand even at the time he didn't really want to do it because he was worried about what Peter Criss would think about him doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did you like his version?
It's actually funny because I seen Peter last year he was actually at our New Jersey Kiss Expo last year, and super cool. This would have been I'm not sure what time frame. I met Peter a couple different times, but lo and behold, I'm there doing the Eric Carr thing, and I do the meet and greet with Peter, and I walk through the door. And Peter just looks at me, and he starts that Peter Criss laugh that only Peter can do. And I'm like, you're not going to beat me up because I'm walking in here as Eric Carr. He goes, hell no, you come in here. I always loved Eric Carr. Eric was great. I talked to him, up until the last final days, and, he shared that story about, Eric Carr calling him up on the phone and saying, Gene and Paul want me to do this, but I know it's an insult to you because it's your song. What do you think? And Peter's like, you can't argue with Gene and Paul. Just make them happy and go out and do a kick-ass version of it. And I was like, wow, you know. And it shows you what kind of person Peter Criss is to someone who's being as genuine as Peter is. And so my thoughts on it was I liked his vocal on it. He gave it a slightly higher, cleaner vocal tone to it. But, you know, of course you can't beat the original. You know, Peter is Peter, and, you know, he's equally as awesome with the work he did with Kiss and, you know, his tune Beth, you know. So, but it was very cool.
And talking a little bit about Peter Criss and being a guy that's met him, I got to ask if you had a chance to read his book, and what are your thoughts on it?
I will admit that I have the book. I really haven't spent too much time reading. Reading's not one of my favorite things to do. But on that same day, we talked a lot about the book, and you know, he said he got a couple jabs in for Eric Carr that he felt was due because I guess some stuff that was happening towards the end of the band there, or not the end of the band, Eric's time with the band.
Yeah.
And, you know, I guess Eric and Peter talked about that kind of stuff. And, in fact, when Kiss let Eric go, one of the first people he called was Peter. And he said, you know, Peter, they just kicked me out of the band, you know, because of this, that, and the other, you know. And Peter's like, you're a survivor, man. You know, you're going to, it'll turn around, you know. You're a great drummer. You'll find a different project, or you'll start one on your own, you know. And so for Peter to do that and take the time to, you know, say, Eric, you know, this is what's going to happen, or this is what you have the potential to do, you know, is awesome. And so I know that Peter was telling me he got some jabs in for Eric. I think a lot of what Peter put into the book is stuff that he needed to say or get off his chest. Is it 100% true or fact or whatever? Nobody knows except for the parties involved, and, you know, I won't offer my opinion on it, but I know there's probably still a lot of bitter feelings to this day just for different stuff that happened throughout the career
years.
of the band.
You know, it's kind of interesting. I seen it kind of.
That's for them to work out, and not me.
Yeah, I mean, even from a fan point of view, I thought at times it was kind of angry and bitter. But I gotta say, of all the Kiss books that have come out so far, I think it's been the most, you know, truthful. And it's kind of ironic that you were just telling me a story about Eric calling Peter and telling him, you know, you're a survivor, you're gonna beat this. When you kind of think about years later, Peter getting the cancer, and he's out, and he's a survivor now, and he's out there, you know, trying to get people to get checked up, and so they don't end up, you know, like him.
Yeah, I think from seeing videos and talking to Peter in that day about the stuff that he's gone through, you know, with breast cancer, and I mean, we didn't get into details and stuff like that, but to see the light that comes on his face and the smile, and, you know, he's like, you know, I'm a survivor this many years, and, you know, it's awesome that I can go out and make guys aware of that this can happen to them, and just to see that smile on his face when he's talking about it, I think is actually probably bigger than a lot of the smiles he had in his times with Kiss, because he even said, you know, it's greater than any award that I ever got with Kiss, or, you know, any song I could put out with Kiss or on my own or whatever. So I think Pete's in a very happy place right now. I'd like to see true peace among the four original members, but you know, we went how many years with them not having peace, so. But you know, what goes around comes around.
Yeah, and I was curious, what do you think about the idea, lately Gene and Paul have been toying with the idea of maybe in about 5 more years retiring and having a new Kiss, which we're actually planning to look for their own replacements. What do you think about that idea?
Well, actually, I mean, I'm a diehard Kiss fan. When you say Kiss to me, I'm not about the 4 original faces. I'm not about the 4 faces that are making Kiss now, or whatever scenario. Kiss to me is Kiss. It's 40 years of music. It's every single member of Kiss that helped get him to this point. My thoughts on Kiss replacing everybody with people in my field, in the tribute field. It would be a sanctioned Kiss tribute band.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's some diehard Kiss fans out there now saying Kiss is a sanctioned Kiss tribute band because of Tommy and Eric being there. My thoughts on that is Tommy and Eric are there because they deserve to be there. It's a paycheck, and who doesn't want a paycheck,
Yeah.
Tommy deserves it to be there because musically, what he does is phenomenal. His guitar playing can replicate Ace, but I mean, as we heard on the last 2 albums, he can be his own guitar player and come out on his own. And of course, we all know he was in one of the first original Kiss tribute bands, Cold Gin. Eric Singer, I don't mean to bash the guy. I really like him as a drummer. I never really felt he was really right for Kiss. But what really sold me on Eric Singer was seeing him with Paul Stanley on the '89 tour, solo tour that Paul did. His drumming was just bombastic. He would sit behind the drums and you'd be like, is that Animal from the Muppets, or is this guy for real? I mean, he's just so animated, and he beats the Skins to death, and that's how I like to see Eric Singer. But now that he's with Kiss, he's sort of had to tone it down. He has to be part of the persona. He has to, do the whole Catman persona thing. So I think he has to reflect that style of drumming or the look, even though he does make everything his own, which I really like. But I wouldn't be really in favor of seeing it go any further than what it is. I think if Gene and Paul have to hang it up, I say
hang it up.
Hang it up.
Yeah.
Don't. Gene and Paul, hang it up, and let us Kiss tribute people keep it alive. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, in regards to Eric Singer, I gotta say too, I think him being in Kiss has kind of made him a better musician. Not that he wasn't before, but like he himself has said in interviews that he was never a singer before he joined Kiss, and he's actually a pretty decent singer. So I would like to maybe after Kiss comes in, maybe see him put out a solo album or something. I think he'd do fairly well with that. I mean, even if you listen to his song on the latest Monster album, All for the Love of Rock and Roll, I think it kind of fits him. I mean, even though when you consider that Paul Stanley wrote the tune, that's a pretty decent song off the new album. In regard to Monster, what do you think about the latest Kiss album?
That's a good question. Matt Porter, he has a podcast called The Kiss Room, and Matt, you owe me because I'm giving you plugs out to Yin Yang here, but that was a topic on his show, and I'd say overall the album's a good album. Would I say it's up with some of the classics? No. I know people are gonna, probably beat me for that, but it's not. To compare Monster with Destroyer, there's a ton of different scenarios. One, you had the original band that had a vibe of their own, and you can't recreate that. I'm sorry, you just can't do it. Ace is Ace and Peter is Peter, and their influences generated that album, along with Gene and Paul. Destroyer to me is one album that just, there's nothing but hits on that record. You have Detroit, King of the Nighttime World, God of Thunder, Do You Love Me, Beth, Shout It Out Loud. That's, to have that many hits on one record is nowadays unheard of. Plus you had outside sources heading into the writing of songs for that album, where nowadays Kiss wants it to be Kiss, and the four people write the stuff together, which is a great format for a band, but and I'm not knocking the album. Like I said, it's a great album. I'm a little disappointed with Gene's vocal. I know he's up there in years, but I really don't hear the demon like I do when they're live. So that's a problem for me. Paul really sounds good for everything that he's undergone. He vocally still sounds really good. And Tommy and Eric, their tunes. Tommy's tune really surprised me because it's just, if anything on that album screams classic Kiss, I would have to say a lot of it comes from that tune right there, because it's a really good tune, and he executes it really well. And why I sort of more and more gain a lot of respect for Tommy, and but I would really like to see Kiss maybe go back to Bob Ezrin, or some of the classic people they wrote stuff with before, and maybe just bite the bullet a little bit and let that characteristic come back in, do some writing, come out with another album, and see if it maybe doesn't have maybe just a little hint more flavor to Love Gun, Destroyer, Hotter Than Hell, And if not, it's not like it's going to be a flop anyways, everything Kiss does has gold all over it, so, but I think it would not hurt anything, you know what I mean?
I agree. I think Bob Ezrin's like the number one key ingredient right there, because even if you listen to Revenge, that's why Revenge sounds that way, because, Bob Ezrin was back on board, and that's why a lot of people compared that album to Destroyer, and, it did have a lot of things in common with it,
Actually, yeah, the Revenge album, if you listen to a lot of the Gene tunes on there, like the one that stands out is Unholy, you hear a lot of the classic demon voice in Unholy, where now I think it's like, all right, we've got so many hours to, get in, get it done, let's just source some vocals down, make it sound, decent, and let's get the product out, and let's get on tour. And understandable, there's nothing wrong with that. Back when I was recording, that was our format too. Let's get it in, get it down on tape, and let's just go do the show, But Revenge was one of those records where there was a lot to account for, a lot to get back, Of course, Eric just passed away, so I think they came out balls to the wall, and they wanted to kick everybody in the gut, and that record did it. I would definitely put that up there with some of the classic Kiss albums.
Yeah, and talking a little bit about Kiss, like we were, you're saying, like, as a Kiss fan, Kiss is kind of like a religion. Kiss is one band that's very unique in that anybody such as yourself, or anybody who's ever a member of a band or even closely associated with Kiss fans, as you've seen at these conventions, they will go pick up the merchandise. They will go like to your booth and talk to you just because you're kind of got a Kiss connection, if you know what I mean. And I think that's a really great thing about Kiss, where they're one band that's, where everybody has their favorite member. There's more than just one leader of a group. You know, you got two lead singers. Everybody in the band sings and writes, and I think that's one thing that makes Kiss really unique.
Absolutely. I mean, even from the early days till now, I mean, you have, of course, Gene and Paul, you know, being the front people, but you had Ace come in and he put out killer tunes, you know, Shock Me, Rocket Ride, New York Groove, 2000 Man, Peter, you know, with Black Diamond, Beth, Baby Driver, Hard Rock Woman. To have that scenario where you can have four people in a band and count on each one to do vocals and do lead vocals and the harmonies and everything, it's very rare. So Kiss was, you know, unique there. And then to have Eric Carr come in and just add to that, and of course he did harmonies just to a T. And in fact, going back to God Gave Rock and Roll to You, even though he didn't play on it, in the little slow, clean part there, that's Eric Carr doing the backing vocals. Not too many people realize that. It's not Gene.
Not Paul.
It's Eric Carr.
Wow.
And even on the Elder, where there was, I can't remember what song it was, but Eric Carr just, his backing vocal with Paul, it just always blended together. Him and Paul were a good duo with matching the vocals and getting that harmony out there. And something I sort of miss to this day, even though that Gene and Paul can do that scenario together. You know, Eric Carr was good at that. Vinny and Mark and Bruce were good, you know, with backup vocals. And I don't think any of them really stepped forward as a lead singer, but they made up with it with the, you know, the guitar work. I mean, they just, you know, took a lead guitar and, you know, put it way out in front of the classic, you know, Ace stuff, which I thought was always unique. And, you know, I really liked Bruce because I think Kiss got to a point where they said, you know, we're going back to the old stuff, but go ahead and just make the leads around the Ace stuff, but, you know, make it your own. And some of the stuff he does with a guitar is phenomenal. I can't say enough stuff about Bruce. He's just a force to be reckoned with. But and now you have Tommy and Eric, which bring that format of, you know, having two other lead singers again, and both, you know, awesome at their craft to, you know, be it guitar and drums. It gives you that classic scenario again, but for it to be classic Kiss, there's it's like having salt and pepper in whatever you're cooking. Without it, it's not a true dish, so to say.
And I gotta say, you know, in regards to Bruce, he's a really great guitar player, but he's really surprised me, like on his solo albums. What a great lead singer he's turned into. Because you know, when I first heard the first solo album he put out, which was Audio Dog, you know, he sounds a little bit like Ace, but you know, he's got a pretty unique voice, and you know, it's pretty decent for what he does, I think.
Yeah, I think Bruce going solo before getting in with Grand Funk was definitely a cool thing for Bruce, and probably a lot of what he needed to do just to excel that little further step as a musician. His vocal work now on his records is definitely impressive, and his guitar is still, you know, as impressing as ever. So yeah, I think he really needed that little boost there, and you know, he's come a long way. You know, not saying that he was anything shy of genius before, but you know, a force to be reckoned with. Yep.
And I try not to keep you much longer, but I have just a few more questions. Talk a little bit about Destroyer. You know, recently they put out the what's called, I think, Destroyer Remastered, and to me the drums sound a little more, louder. But what did you think about them re-releasing that?
From what I understand, it was more Ezrin that wanted to do that more than Kiss. I really don't even think Kiss was too much involved with that. And, it sounded all right. I'll take the original or the remastered any day. I didn't care for the acoustic guitar put back into Beth. I think it sort of did away or took away from the tune than enhanced it. But it is what it is. What hasn't Kiss tried to redo or re-put out or whatever? I think we're all guilty of buying the 25th compilation CD put out by Kiss or whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But it was cool. It was a cool thing to have out, and having the other version of was it Sweet Pain?
Yeah.
A different version of that one there. That was pretty cool. With the original Ace lead guitar in there. So yeah, it was cool.
And what do you think about the album cover? It was basically the same except for it was a black cover, which I understand originally was what the cover they wanted to go with, but the record company at the time felt it looked too violent.
Right. I believe at a couple past Kiss Expos, we had the guy who designed the cover or did the artwork, and he has a great story to tell about all of that. And I'd say any expo that comes around where he's going to be there, I wish I could think of his name offhand.
Ken Kelly.
Kill me. Yeah. If he's at a convention near you, go and check it out. He's got a lot of cool stories to tell about the process and the designing of the cover and the whole nine yards. So that's what I like about the expos. Not only can I go and promote Eric Carr and bring you all the latest merchandise that Loretta puts out, but you get to see some of the behind the scenes people that really never got the credit instead of just your regular, Eric Singer or Tommy or, like we had Peter or Bruce or Bob, some of these people from behind the scenes come out and they got the best stories of how the band was at the time or, what the band was thinking of the cover, and they're like, no, it should be like this. And so, Kiss Expos are the way to go.
And let me ask you about now, I know a show you were involved with or some kind of tribute. It's called A Night of the Fox. Could you talk a little bit about that with us?
Night of the Fox is by a good buddy of mine that lives in Georgia, Alan. And this was actually the second time to do this show. He did it back in 2011. I hope that's right, Alan, but I think it was back then. And, it's all based around Eric Carr and Eric Carr's time with Kiss. So his tribute band at the time was called Little Caesar. Okay. I think now he's renamed it to be Asylum. Great bunch of guys. All the talented musicians. We were talking, and he's looking to really turn this thing into Eric Carr based Kiss Expo at some point down the road. And we were talking, and I was like, anything I could do to help. And he's like, well, what do you think about coming down, and just hanging out? And I was like, well, that'd be cool. I was like, well, what if I could do you one better and bring you not only the face and the character of Eric Carr, how about I bring you ericcarr.com, and we'll bring some merchandise down there, and we'll sell all the latest merchandise, some awards, some personally owned Eric Carr stuff, and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, that's cool. And I was like, well, we got to kidding around, and I was like, well, how about we get Eric Carr up there and, drum out a couple tunes. And he's like, dude, I never thought of that. that would be awesome. I didn't know you played drums. And I was like, yeah, I had a tribute band back in the day, and I've sort of been retired because I haven't found the right scenario to relaunch my tribute band. And he's like, well, yeah, tell me what you want to drum. And so we ended up going down, and I played War Machine and I Love It Loud. Good response, for a guy that hadn't played probably in probably 4 or 5 years. And, so it was fun. We'd probably do it again. Hopefully he can get some backing behind him and turn it into what he wants it to be, an Eric Carr-based Kiss Expo type deal, and with the most of it being focused around Eric Carr. And for somebody to really roll the dice and put something like that out there is a hard thing to sell, but, Alan does a good job, and Asylum, his band, is great. And if you're in the Georgia area, and you hear the name Asylum or Little Caesar, whichever he's going with, get out there and support them because, they're a non-makeup tribute band, but they kick ass.
And let me ask you now, Eric, you were telling me in the email when we were setting up this interview that, like you said, you'd had a tribute band at one point and you've been thinking about putting it back together. How close are you to putting the project back together?
We're in the negotiation phase. I'll put it to you like that. Matt's probably going to kill me because he's always bugging me. If you got news, man, you got to put it out on the Kiss Room. But Matt, forgive me. We're in the negotiation phase. I actually did write some pyro for a Kiss tribute out of Baltimore with 4 great guys. They were called Love Gun. They're sort of in a hiatus phase right now because the guy that did Paul, his name's Speed, he has a good original band called Silver Tongue, and they're touring extensively with some big name acts. And so it's a question mark if we're going to be doing anything further with Love Gun. And there's some good musicians there, but my whole thing is if I'm going to go out and make one last attempt to do a Kiss tribute band, I'm looking for people with the same focus, the same head game that I got, and we're a team. We're not 4 egos, competing with each other. Because I've been in those scenarios before, and you end up unemployed as a band. So I take my time with it. Like I said, I've been looking to put it together for years. And after doing the Night of the Fox, I really got the urge to maybe give it a more serious attempt at putting it back together. I actually had a couple offers, which I don't want to say didn't pan out, but they took a different direction. To do a Kiss tribute with an Eric Carr or a Vinnie Vincent or even non-makeup is a hard sell because, like I said, Kiss fans want to see the 4 iconic figures. And I make no bones. I do not shoot anybody or condemn anybody for that. But what we need to remember as Kiss fans, there's a lot more to Kiss than just those faces that were in the 70s and what we see today. There's Eric Carr, there's Vinnie Vincent, Mark St. John, and Bruce Kulick. And for that era of Kiss to be ignored is blasphemy. It's absurd. And I would like to find 3 other guys with that same mental focus as me. And it's okay for Eric Carr to go out there and play Peter, Chris, genre songs because what did Eric Carr do when he joined Kiss?
Yeah.
He played those tunes. But for a band to ignore, anything from Asylum to Hot in the Shade is stupid, because there was great tunes on all of those records. But to have a Peter Chris go out in a tribute band and play something from Hot in the Shade or Asylum or Animalized is sort of, weird to me. So, tell you what, let me, as Eric Carr, come out there and put a band together and do it. So that's my mental state right now. I'm talking to some people. If it happens, it happens. If not, I have nothing to be disappointed with because I'm having a great run working with Loretta. We got great products coming out. We got the New Jersey Kiss Expo at the end of the month, September 28th, in New Jersey. And I hope to see everybody there that can make it. Make sure you stop around, see me, grab a picture, grab some merchandise. We're going to have everything from card sets, CDs, DVDs, to awards, some personal owned Eric Carr stuff. We have a lot coming out, and I just wish I could spill the beans, but like I said, Loretta would beat me to a pulp, and we don't want that to happen. But be looking for a lot of cool stuff on ericcarr.com, and check out my website. It's etrcthefox.com, and if you want to know what's going on in the ericcarr.com world, you'll find out there, and vice versa, Facebook, Twitter, we got it all. So you'll always be informed of what's going on in Loretta's world with Eric Carr.
Okay, and I'd like to, once again, Eric, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this. I really can't thank you enough, and I just want to end this interview by saying, as a Kiss fan myself, I think what's really great about what you're doing is, while there are people in tribute bands paying tribute to their favorite, bands and heroes, you're actually doing this out of your love for Eric Carr and Kiss. I mean, Eric Carr's no longer able to be with us, but I think what's great about what you're doing is you go out and make these appearances, and you're helping the family to keep his memory alive, and that's why just getting back to your Kiss tribute idea, that's why I think you might be successful, because you already have a huge fan base of your own from doing this, and I think there are enough Eric Carr fans, as you've seen out there in the world, that would want to go see Eric Carr, tribute of some kind, and so I think you should really give that some strong consideration.
Well, thank you, and anybody listening or anybody that hears this, if you're local to the Pennsylvania or Philadelphia region, and you're in a Kiss tribute band, or you're looking to get in a Kiss tribute band, and you're very serious-minded and open up to, what I sort of expressed in what I'd like to do, feel free to find me on Facebook or go to my website that I said about, and hit me up, and we'll talk. And as far as me and Loretta, we'd like just to take a minute and say thank you to everybody that's keeping Eric's memory alive. It's not just about me. What I do is for my own personal satisfaction, and how much Eric meant to me. I love him like a brother, even though I never got to meet him. And he meant the world to me. But being able to work on the official Eric Carr Facebook page, and being an administrator there, and Eric Carr's Twitter account, and just seeing the love and support that comes in from fans, not only in the United States, but all over the world, it's just phenomenal. And I know that Loretta would like me to take the 2 seconds to say thank you to everybody. Keep it coming in. Find us. Join the party, because it's not only about Kiss, it's about Eric Carr too. And Eric Carr was a big part of Kiss, and everybody that keeps his memory alive is kudos in our book.
Okay, well, thanks again, Eric, and you do take care of yourself, and we'll be keeping in touch with you, and I'll be sure you get a copy of this interview, and thanks again. I can't thank you enough.
All right, everybody, rock on, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.